Smart as a camera. And we've already started. Let's go. There, make everything look nice. There are only 2 minutes left for today's live. So let's get started. Fixing everything, moving something, messing everything up. Let's go, let's go. Just a minute, we're starting today's live. Almost done, and here we go. Now we're fine. I don't know if I'm centered here. Okay, it's 8 p.m. and we're going to start our live broadcast today. And the topic is easy because it's almost going to be a repetition of the subject, a new reference, but almost a repetition. Sao Paulo, April 23rd, 2025. Today's live broadcast is democracy and citizen rights, belonging. I'm going to talk a lot about what true democracy is, which has little to do with republican systems. Democracy is something different from a republican system. And I'm going to talk about the citizen DREC, which is a key element in democracy, because the citizen DREC is what will give individuals and the state a sense of belonging. When you talk about democracy, it's the power that emanates from the people, that whole thing. But in practice, it often happens that it's an oppression of the population, or conditioning or misinformation, leading the population to perceive things differently, to perceive things wrongly. So if you leave the information, the girl goes in, sailing free, as if she had no direction at all. So what happens? What is fundamental is that we have a structured, strong democracy, and a democracy with a natural structure, not an imposed one. I'm going to talk a little about that, okay? And so that we can, with DREX Citizen, have our own sense of belonging on top of this democracy. Okay, let's go. So the first important thing that we have to review, and we always have to review, is the state. The state always has a state, the definition of state. You look in the dictionary, there are several definitions of state. But the natural state is that you have a territory and a history of a territory. The history of a territory is the state. With this history of the territory, these living beings that are in this territory have a history. And this history creates norms and rules for coexistence in this place, in this territory, in this volume, in this space. Okay. But this territory has its profits, it has its income. And the citizen DREC would be the income of the territory for each citizen. The citizen DREC is not a favor to the citizen. This territory, where this individual, where this citizen was born, this territory has a certain income. And this income in this territory, with this income, to be distributed to all citizens equally. Equal, egalitarian. And then you will put an end to these differences, social inequalities, but it is a small proportion of income. It is not the entire income. So the state is developing private companies, state-owned companies. Everything is the same as it is today in Brazil. Everything is the same. Nothing will change. The only issue is that your PX will receive daily income that belongs to the Brazilian state, which is the citizen DREX. The PX, the citizen DREX every day. Today it would be between 30 REAIs and 50 REAIs per day for each citizen. This changes the entire configuration of the Brazilian state, the entire configuration. And this change is very significant and has this, you know, those little things, this gossip about crime, this gossip about aggression. Many times these aggressions are the result of this economic instability that people are experiencing. So aggressiveness could be the result of this irresponsible state that does not provide an income to its citizens. If it were the child of a company, right? Super rich who has a huge company, his children would have the income normally. No, but the state has its income and only denies income to the citizen. So it becomes a petty state only wanting to collect taxes, wanting to collect taxes from the citizen. No, let's look at something different. Democracy, DREX, citizen, or belonging. Let's talk about education, collaborative education, education that values community, being together with everyone, helping everyone, being together. And not education that is competitive, that is education that emphasizes ego and meritocracy. Meritocracy is not a lie. Meritocracy is a republic thing. The republic talks about meritocracy, but there is no meritocracy. It doesn't exist. It's a lie. It doesn't work. It's not. Meritocracy only serves those who are in the upper class and super, 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 right? A meritocracy, you have to think about it from the moment an individual is born. And if he depends on the name he was born into, he won't have the proper education. And education is fundamental. So we're going to talk about democracy, citizen rights and belonging, education, health, security. 3 areas. How cool. Education, health and security. What kind of education? Collaborative education. But education where these individuals, these students are also receiving the citizen DREX. This citizen DREX has a counterpart. You have to study, boy, you have to study. And what about health? Health 5.0, SUS 5.0, with health where you want to have a consultation. You can already do it online. A consultation, you can already talk to a professional in your area that you need to do the consultation, make the appointment online. Even so, I also need a lot of technology infiltrated everywhere for this online consultation, and security technology infiltrated everywhere, internet everywhere. And also this carbon credit where there are some areas with woods, with forests. Pay the farmer who has this little reserve. You have to pay, right? How come you don't pay? There is carbon credit. It has to be done. The city government will have to do it. Do you understand? This technology will reach a level where you can see who is creating the riparian forest, leaving the riparian forest, leaving small forest reserves. You will pay. This person will make a profit from carbon credits, of course. Health 5.0, online. And collaborative education. And then you have something strong. Belonging, which I talked to you about, is something that when you say belonging, you think of the word belonging. So it is a process in which we use human cognition to talk about belonging. We use the human mind to talk about belonging, but this is speech, and belonging goes far beyond speech. Belonging is an extremely deep feeling. It comes from where the mind cannot reach. I define belonging based on the so-called core sensing, which is more or less bacteria. When they receive the same information, sometimes they all move together in the same movement. It's like cartoons and birds moving together. So belonging is this joint movement, the same information arriving in joint movement. Look, the same information. DC citizen, for every citizen will give the citizen a sense of belonging to the state. Today, citizens do not belong to the state. Today, a large part of the citizen is entangled with misinformation and groups that think this government is corrupt or that want to collect taxes. These lies, it's because there is no belonging. So the citizen is disaggregated, he doesn't feel part of a whole. But if I had DREX Citizen every day, oops, I'm Brazilian. The state supports me, the state provides me with economic security. I have my children. I don't need to earn a lot because I know that the state will support my children. The state is responsible. It will not abandon any citizen. Why? The state's income is being redistributed to all citizens, a percentage, at least the minimum for the citizen's survival on that day. You understand? Every day. And in the case of bail and such, it belongs to the citizen. So there you have a sense of belonging. I'm Brazilian. And what's more, if you go to the United States or if you go to another country and you're Brazilian, the money that goes to you every day goes to an official bank in that country and you'll receive your DEX there every day, citizen. It's a fantastic proposal. And with that, you have a union, and it is a real union. It is a real union. It is the union of this state. The state has to be, man, every citizen receives this income from the country. The state must seek the good of all for the benefit of each one. That's what the state is. And now the state, when it's hijacked by the political class, is only after the personal good of each individual. It's seeking profit and the so-called meritocracy, because I'm a politician and there's nonsense misinformation on the internet. And when misinformation gets more votes and wins, it becomes a deputy and seeks more money to continue giving more misinformation. Stop all of this. We need a real democracy, and democracy is made of individual freedom. And freedom, people say no one can harm our freedom. I think that's so beautiful. Because true freedom is not Republican freedom. Republican freedom is not freedom. It is conditioning. True freedom is freedom. Freedom to come, freedom to stay or remain, freedom to be, freedom to disobey, freedom to go. That is freedom. If you are in a city like Sao Paulo, as I am now, if you don't have money, you don't have the freedom to go or stay. Not even to be, you have no freedom. It's a country without freedom at all. Then people say, oh, freedom on social media, I don't know. No, on social media, there's just a lot of masking misinformation. What they say about freedom is to keep lying to you, thinking that freedom is this thing on social media. No, freedom is you being able to come, to stay, to be, to disobey, to go. This is freedom. We don't have that. The Republic does not offer freedom to its citizens. It imposes rules and regulations that must be followed. If you follow the rules and regulations, then you are free to not get beaten by the police. It depends on your class, you know? Then you are free, and even so, depending on your class, you are getting beaten by the police. So, let's change that. DREX Citizen comes to you and puts the money in your hand. Populations, poorer communities where there is a lot of population, DREX Citizen arrives there. Private or even state-owned companies will arrive there with schools, with hospitals, because there is money there. There is DREX there, where there is a lot of money circulating and the economy grows. So here we go. It brings development to these regions. This is very important. I define the state as the good of all in favor of each one. This is a simple definition of state for me. The state is the history of a territory, its norms and rules. And what does the state exist for? For the good of all in favor of each one. Today, what is our state? The good of some in favor of a few, some very few. The state is working more in the financial market than for the population. That's what the state is. And DREX's vision will change. I'm seeing that Calipro is already thinking about DREX to reduce the amount of interest we pay. We pay close to $1 trillion in interest per year. Calipro is trying. Let's see if with DREX we can get in and reduce this interest. Of course, $1 trillion per year. The state is feeding the financial market. The state is not feeding the citizen. It is an irresponsible state. It could possibly become more responsible if DREX enters, and if DREX the citizen enters. For those who don't know what DREX is the real digital money. It comes from a retail CDBC, central bank digital correct. The central bank can issue these currencies digitally. It issues credit without debit. This circulates naturally in the economy. DREX Citizen issues credit to all citizens with a certain link to the country's income, and there will be no debit, because this money will only enter the economy and circulate. Over time, I think that all the money in the economy has to come from what was used by the population, by DREX Citizen. No money in the economy could exist just circulating in a bank without ever having been used by a citizen. Do you understand? Only by legal entities using that amount of money circulating back and forth. What's up, man? To me, this is theft. That's what it's called. It's kidnapping the state itself. Okay. So for me, belonging is this. Belonging is a common stimulus for everyone. A citizen's duty would be belonging. Brazil is so separated. It's so antagonistic with a bunch of groups. Left, right. I don't recognize left, right. Politically, I am like this. This left, right comes from this concept of republic. Even the left has to follow a doctrine. No, I believe in democracy. So the rules and regulations of a place, a territory, a region, a neighborhood, they go up a little and adapt to the city hall, the state, the entire federation. So the rules come from the places, and the rules and regulations, they come from the needs of the living beings that inhabit that space. The living beings, of course, will have some humans, and the humans will relate and see. Deforest so much, don't deforest these beings, this species, that species. So these rules come from the place. So it is a respect for the place. It starts to have the rules. The state comes from the place, which is the history of the territory, the republic no more. The story that was there in Portugal came here and defines what it is. The indigenous people have no soul, you can kill them, and there is no problem. More or less that definition you had. And it goes deforests and makes, I mean, a rule from top to bottom. It's not from space up. And I believe in democracy, in the democracy of living beings, where in fact man has relevance because we will represent and must represent the best that living beings have to offer. They are evil. Some human beings are evil, but because they are poorly educated. This education and the search for competition, this competitiveness, leads you to seek profit. And this tendency to seek profit and achieve it, it stays in the brain pathways of profit, profit, profit. Profit, and this path becomes a habit. It becomes a belief, it becomes faith, and this path sinks, and you start to have within you a metabolism so fast, so intense on top of profit, that you end up blaspheming like Banksy said, look, empathy, it's a human deficiency. You reach this level when you only think about profit, you understand? You go to inhumanity. We have to give ourselves education. If education for there will be fewer distortions in some elements. Of course, some characters, some people will have some problems of obsession with something, but not as many as there are today. Today, the deputy rises, the politician rises, and then he wants what is best for himself and turns his back on the population. It's almost natural. Out of every 500 Politicians who get in office, maybe 90% will only want the best for themselves. They'll try to serve their entire term in office to get another term. So, what is this? This is a competitive education because they want meritocracy. They want to be ahead. They want to stay in this lie. Mine is ego. I have to do well. If I do well, I'll help others. But if I do well, I want to do even better. More, 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 more. And it's never enough. And the population always gets the drift. It is free, loose. Nobody looks at the population. They only look at it when it is time to receive the flight. So collaborative education will help you a lot to get rid of this fake meritocracy and will also take away this belief in the self. I don't exist. And when you take the I out of your life, all that's left is us. Look how cool, and us, the planet, the planet. I don't exist. But the educational system we receive is based on an I, on an ego, a superego, an ego, an ego. It doesn't exist. It's not in the brain. It's a belief. I don't exist. It doesn't exist. Yes, but if you have the belief in the I and it's already crystallized, you have a gigantic ego. And this ego attacks your stomach, your belly. It gives you pain. You become proud. You become resentful. You become hateful over an ego to preserve a belief, which is the I. That doesn't exist. I don't exist. It's a lie, just like meritocracy. So with collaborative education, we can get rid of. Do you understand? When education is Republican and sends out competition, it's like this. I impose what's right, mine, what's right for the entire population. This is a republic imposing what's right for the entire population. Remember that in a live broadcast, I told you that the problem, the dictator, and many Republicans, the state becomes very complicated from the moment you separate right from wrong. If you separate right from wrong, you'll say that the right is you and the wrong is the non you, and you on top of this, me who believes in the right. Things always have a dose of right. I was talking to my wife, and she said, my cortisol was high early in the morning. I said, if your cortisol is low early in the morning, you won't wake up. Cortisol is necessary. My cortisol is not wrong. So right and wrong are together, the doses and the time. Things change. Cortisol is good at this time. It is not good at this time. Stress gives you more cortisol, but without cortisol, you don't wake up. Mixed with the self, right and wrong, yin yang is a good statement, okay? I don't agree much, but it's a good statement. I think that the dualism of right and wrong is not enough. There are half measures. Very right, very wrong, more or less. Anyway, there are half measures, but right and wrong are always together. So when you separate right from wrong and say, I'm going to live a righteous life of rectitude, of values, then you're becoming a tyrant, a dictator. That's what a dictator is. He only lives the right way, you know? And it's always a mix of right and wrong. And we will always look for the best for myself and for others around you. Do you understand? So it's a mix of both. Uh, Democracy seeks the development, security, and pleasure of all, respecting the rights of each individual. This is democracy. Nowadays, we have a meeting, a whole group. This is democracy. We voted for this, and it is imposed. Things that do not respect the rights of others. That is not democracy. Democracy will respect the rights of each person. So we set up a committee, the majority voted yes, okay, but look, this vote violates the rights of that person. Oops, it violated the rights, let's negotiate. How to negotiate rights? Because democracy will not violate rights. It will try to seek the security and development of the majority, the vast majority of everyone, but sometimes there is one or another who does not want that development. I'm not going to force that person to go to college if they do not want to. I'm not going to force this person to build the house like this with a bathroom or something like that. No, I'm going to give orders. A bathroom is more efficient. If you have a bathroom, you'll optimize your time. But if the person doesn't want one, that's their right. Understand? And it is the right to be as well, to be like this, to be like that, to be different. I have the right. But there are rules, preferences, the path, what is the purchase, the sale, so there are the rules. So democracy will seek to develop people and people's security and will seek the pleasure of all, but respecting the rights of each one. In some places, it has to negotiate a lot. Real democracy needs to include the economic, emotional, and educational well-being of each person. Real democracy is not just going to vote for your candidate, the one you've already been to and received a torrent of misinformation, a fire hose of fake news in your head, and you go there and vote for so and so. That's democracy. No, real democracy will include your economic well-being. It takes care of your economic well-being and that of everyone else because sometimes you want your economic well-being and the economic discomfort of others. And here, not the economy, real democracy will include your economic well-being and that of others as well. Citizen break is a tool of belonging. And even the Brazilian state, governments and politicians have not realized this. They only talk about DREX, and there is an entire far right that is against DREX. Why are they against DREX? Because with DREX we will pay less interest. We pay close to $1 trillion in interest annually. With DREX we will pay less. The financial market is the one that contaminates the network with misinformation. Of course, it is the financial market. So, from the moment DREX comes in, we will start paying less for gold. Even if the interest rate is high at 14% as it is now, with DREX I will pay less because I will borrow less money to do what needs to be done. The retail CBDC goes there and fulfills the social mission without the need for me to borrow from the financial market, which is like a noose around the neck of the state and always attacking the state. So this is important for you to know. So the tool of belonging, when I provide the citizens' right to all citizens, the population will have a sense of belonging to the state. Belonging comes from a stimulus common to all: care, recognition, and participation. It is a natural stimulus, and you feel that you are being cared for by the state. Then you belong to the state. The mind does not reach belonging. The mind does not reach the sense of belonging. Even this conversation I have with you is a blah, blah, blah about belonging. Belonging is a deep sense. These stimuli are the same. This movement, this school of fish, do you understand? This is belonging. So it is something that the mind does not reach, that the consciousness does not reach. But it knows whether it belongs or not. You arrive at a place and sometimes you feel like you do not belong there. And then you will use the cognitive process. You will say a lot of things, but you felt something there. Sometimes it is a concept that was blocking you. But if you receive the same stimulus, everyone is receiving that stimulus. It is the same stimulus. If everyone receives the DREX Citizen, everyone has a sense of belonging in the Brazilian nation, or Peruvian, or Argentine, or American. Simply the reception of this makes belonging occur. Education is collaborative. Education must respect the place and time of each person, of each being, so that they can develop fully. Education must respect the place, location, and time of each being. Where is the being? What is the time of this being? Do you understand? And then you will develop this being fully. It is not a standard education that everyone will develop. Where the person is, this being, and the time of learning of this being, it becomes a little more behind, ahead, respecting this being. This is important. Andre Cidadao becomes simpler because this being, he has income, he can change the tone, he can do it, he pays for it. It wouldn't get to the point where you could pay for public schools, you could pay for the SUS itself, whether you wanted to or not, okay? And you understand why you have to. You are not a totally needy person. You are a rentier of the Brazilian state. You are against this citizen. And by the way, you are the owner of the Brazilian state. If you are Brazilian, you are the owner. The only problem is that the state, as irresponsible, does not give you the income. It leaves the income there in limbo in the financial market. A trillion in annual interest, a trillion in annual interest. And then you ask why a trillion in annual interest? Because it is a Republican state, right? The rules and regulations are made by the guys in the financial market to control the rules and norms of money, and the population is left adrift. It is loose. And the politicians, look, the financial market controls a good part of the politicians, really. It has placed and controls a good part of the politicians. What I want to leave with you is important. Some effects, and I said this before, some effects are the cause of almost everything. You have domestic violence, men beating their wives, husbands beating their wives at various levels of society in all social classes. But you say, but why is this happening? Then you will see the story of the male who is beating, and then everyone wants to attack the male. Man, if this happens, and it has happened, it is because it will also continue to happen. We have to mitigate these problems. The male may have economic problems, and the female too. Or the couple, if it's a man with a man too, one who is there, who goes to do things. He goes to seek one feeling, and the other too. If the drag citizen is for both, at some point of a conflict, they simply are no longer together because they can survive separately. Now, how can a man separate from another if they depend on each other? It's hard to understand. So there's that tolerance, even in the case of an aggression that has occurred. I tolerate it because I depend on it. No, 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 no. You receive the DREX Citizen. The state will support you wherever you go in the state, and even outside the state. It will support you with the minimum necessary for your survival. You don't need to be humiliated or continue to receive humiliation, writhing because someone else is attacking you. No, simply, look, freedom. You can come, you can stay, you can go, you can disobey, and you can be. You have freedom because you have the DREX Citizen. Without the DREX Citizen, there is no freedom. It's a story. Freedom. There is no freedom because you don't have financial freedom. You have to respect who is providing, who is giving you, who is injecting money into you. So this is too important. When some effects are causes of almost everything, this effect, the irresponsible state, creates aggression in society. The irresponsible state creates crime. It is simple to understand this. If you have nothing to lose, what are you capable of doing? Anything. You have to lose. You have a citizen drag. If you're a big bandit, for example, I don't really believe in this story of a criminal. The criminal is there, but he was born a baby. And this baby was raised and faced some stressful situations and took some different paths to get to this point. But from the moment that this individual, even now in this situation, knows that the state is protecting him and keeping him in whatever conditions he has created, he will feel a little safer and will feel like he belongs. And he knows that his family will belong to the state. I, Deco Cidadão. Guys, this is what I wanted to tell you and show you that democracy, direct citizen support, and belonging are all linked. And if you have a political friend, pass this on to him, because this will be a state project. It will no longer be a government. Direct citizen support will come little by little and will come and stay. And we will feel more belonging in the state that we had. A big hug to you, and see you next Wednesday.